In this class, we study the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is an English translation of Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, which is a record of the dialogues of Sri Ramakrishna, the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, as noted by M. Mahendranath Gupta, who was a school teacher, one of the close disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who saw Sri Ramakrishna in the last 4 or 5 years of his life and went regularly to listen to him and went back and took notes. And Sri Ramakrishna actually encouraged him. So it sort of sounds like a grand plan, because he would ask M to repeat what Sri Ramakrishna had taught, and would correct him once, that I did not say that, I said it in this way. Almost like he wanted this book to be, I wouldn't say almost, it's certainly that he wanted this book to be written, because Swami Shivananda, another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who became Tarak at that time, who became a monk, Swami Shivananda later on, he too once started writing down what Sri Ramakrishna was saying. And Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm writing down what you're saying. It's so valuable. I'm writing it down so that I don't forget." And Sri Ramakrishna said, "It is not for you. Stop that." And so Tarak, Swami Shivananda, he threw away his notebook into the Ganga. But it just goes to show that there was this plan, call it a divine plan, behind this book. So we are in early days yet. It is 22nd October 1882. It's a Sunday. So most of the times you'll see a Saturday or a Sunday, because that's when M, who was a school teacher, would have a holiday. And in fact, many of the household devotees, they had, it was not a work day. They were able to visit Sri Ramakrishna on weekends. So this is page 126 in my book, and the date is 22nd October 1882. It was the day of Vijaya, the last day of the celebration of the worship of Durga, when the clay image is immersed in the water of a lake or river. So it's the most important religious festival in Bengal, worship of Durga. And on Dashami, the 10th day of the worship, actually the actual worship is done on 5 days, from the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th days. So on the 10th day, the worship is concluded, and you say goodbye to Mother Durga for the year, and we visualize her going back to her transcendent, her abode, a heavenly abode, and the image in which she was worshipped. Now the image is now consigned to the river, to the water. So it melts back. The form melts back into the formless. About 9 o'clock in the morning, M was seated on the floor of the master's room at Dakshineshwar, near Sri Ramakrishna, who was reclining on the small couch. Rakhal, who later became Swami Brahmananda, Rakhal was then living with the master, and Narendra, who became Swami Vivekananda, and Bhavanath visited him frequently. Baburam, later Swami Premananda, Baburam had seen him only once or twice. Master: "Did you have any holiday during the Durga Puja?" M: "Yes, sir. I went to Keshav's house every day for the first 3 days of the worship." Master: "Is that so?" M: "I heard there a very interesting interpretation of the Durga Puja." Master: "Please tell me all about it." M: "Keshav Sen held daily morning prayers in his house, lasting till 10 or 11. During these prayers, he gave the inner meaning of the Durga Puja. He said that if anyone could realize the Divine Mother, that is to say, could install Mother Durga in the shrine of his heart, then Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kartika, and Ganesha would come there of themselves." There is a footnote. According to Hindu mythology, Lakshmi and Saraswati are the daughters, and Kartika and Ganesha the sons of Durga. Associated with the image of Durga, they occupy positions on both sides of the Divine Mother. So those who have seen the traditional Durga image in Bengal and many Durga temples also. So there is the iconography is there's the central image of the Divine Mother, and on two sides are the two daughters, Lakshmi symbolizing prosperity and Saraswati symbolizing knowledge. And then further on both sides of the sisters are the two brothers, Kartika symbolizing valor, courage, and Ganesha symbolizing wisdom and auspiciousness. So he said that if anyone could realize the Divine Mother, that is to say, could install Mother Durga in the shrine of his heart, then Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kartika, and Ganesha would come there of themselves. Lakshmi means wealth, Saraswati knowledge, Kartika strength, and Ganesha success. By realizing the Divine Mother within one's heart, one gets all these without any effort whatever. Sri Ramakrishna listened to the description, questioning M now and then about the prayers conducted by Keshab. At last, he said to M, "Don't go hither and thither. Come here alone. Those who belong to the inner circle of my devotees will come only here. Boys like Narendra, Bhavanath, and Rakhal are my very intimate disciples. They are not to be thought lightly of. Feed them one day." There's a footnote. Feeding a holy man is considered a meritorious act. Feed them one day. What do you think of Narendra? M. I think very highly of him, sir. Master. Haven't you observed his many virtues? He's not only well versed in music, vocal and instrumental, but he's also very learned. Besides, he has controlled his passions and declares he will lead a celibate life. He has been devoted to God since his very boyhood. How are you getting along with your meditation nowadays? What aspect of God appeals to your mind, with form or without form? M. Sir, now I can't fix my mind on God with form. On the other hand, I can't concentrate steadily on God without form. Master, now you see that the mind cannot be fixed all of a sudden on the formless aspect of God. It is wise to think of God with form during the primary stages. M. Do you mean to suggest that one should meditate on clay images? Master, why clay? These images are the embodiments of consciousness. M. Even so, one must think of hands, feet, and other parts of the body. But again, I realize that the mind cannot be concentrated unless one meditates in the beginning on God with form. You have told me so. Well, God can easily assume different forms. May one meditate on the form of one's own mother? Master, yes, the mother should be adored. She is indeed an embodiment of Brahman. M sat in silence. After a few minutes, he asked the master, what does one feel while thinking of God without form? Isn't it possible to describe it? After some reflection, the master said, do you know what it is like? He remained silent for a moment and then said a few words to M about one's experiences at the time of vision of God with and without form. You know, these right now, what just happened, he said a few things to M about one's experiences, and M doesn't mention it, what he said, and M knows exactly what was said. So there are some very, I would say, esoteric things which he felt. He took what is called a judgment call. He felt it should not be shared publicly. So he just touches upon it and then he moves along. It's a little frustrating for us. But anyway, there is more than enough material which he has given out to all of us. This happens sometimes. I remember, again, what it means, I don't know. I just remembered this. The very senior monk with whom under whom I joined the order, Swami Suhitananda ji, who is now the vice president of the order, he spent a lot of time serving Swami Premeshananda, a disciple of the Holy Mother. Now, he told me this. One day when he was a novice, this was in the 1960s, two very senior monks came from Belur Mutt to meet Swami Premeshananda. And they expressed concern about, what would happen to us after this life. And Sri Ramakrishna has said that anyone who has come here, this is the last life for them. What does it exactly mean? What is the last life? In what sense? Does it mean just anybody who's devoted to Sri Ramakrishna is the last life, or anybody who's become a monk, that's the last life, or anybody who has got the mantra from, in the lineage of Sri Ramakrishna is the last life? So what exactly does it mean? Some such question was asked, and that's all that this the Swami who told me, that's all he heard, because Swami Premeshanandaji became a little excited, and he said, "What are you saying? Listen." And then he told Swami Suhitananda, who was the attendant, the young brahmachari, he said, "You leave the room, step out of the room." And so Swami Suhitananda left the room. So that's all I know. And then he said something to those senior monks, which was only for their ears, but which was apparently very satisfying for them to hear. Now, what he said. So there are certain times I have seen in a few incidents or heard of certain incidents, there are things which are not given out for the risk of misunderstanding for everybody. Yes. Master. You see, one must practice spiritual discipline to understand this correctly. Suppose there are treasures in a room. If you want to see them and lay hold of them, you must take the trouble to get the key and unlock the door. After that, you must take the treasures out. But suppose the room is locked, and standing outside the door, you say to yourself, "Here, I have opened the door. Now I have broken the lock of the chest. Now I have taken out the treasure." Such brooding near the door will not enable you to achieve anything. You must practice discipline. The Gyanis think of God without form. They don't accept the divine incarnation. Praising Sri Krishna, Arjuna said, "Thou art Brahman absolute." Sri Krishna said, "Follow me, and you will know whether or not I am Brahman absolute." So saying, Sri Krishna led Arjuna to a certain place and asked him what he saw there. "I see a huge tree," said Arjuna, "and on it I notice fruits hanging like clusters of blackberries." Then Krishna said to Arjuna, come nearer, and you will find that these are not clusters of blackberries, but clusters of innumerable Krishnas like me hanging from the tree." In other words, divine incarnations without number appear and disappear on the tree of the absolute Brahman. Kabir Das was strongly inclined to the formless God. At the mention of Krishna's name, he would say, "Why should I worship him?" The gopis would clap their hands while he performed a monkey dance with a smile. But I accept God with form when I am in the company of people who believe in that ideal. And I also agree with those who believe in for the formless God. M, smiling. You are as infinite as he of whom we have been talking. Truly, no one can fathom your depth. Master, smiling. Ah, I see you have found it out. Let me tell you one thing. One should follow various paths. One should practice each creed for a time. In the game of Satrancha, a piece can't reach the center square until it completes the circle. But once in the square, it can't be overtaken by any other piece. That is true, M. That is true, sir. Master. There are two classes of yogis, the Bahudakas and Kutichakas. The Bahudakas roam about visiting various holy places and have not yet found peace of mind. But the Kutichakas, having visited all the sacred places, have quieted their minds. Feeling serene and peaceful, they settle down in one place and no longer move about. In that one place, they are happy. They don't feel the need of going to any sacred place. If one of them ever visits a place of pilgrimage, it is only for the purpose of new inspiration. I had to practice each religion for a time. Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. Furthermore, I followed the paths of the Shaktas, Vaishnavas, and Vedantists. I realized that there is only one God towards whom they're all traveling, but the paths are different. It's a long section. All right, let me read through it, but we will take more than one class to go through it. Let me finish reading it. While visiting the holy places, I would sometimes suffer great agony. Once I went with Mathur to Raja Babu's drawing room in Banaras. I found that they talked there only of worldly matters, money, real estate, and the like. At this, I burst into tears. I said to the Divine Mother, weeping, Mother, where hast thou brought me? I was much better off at Dakshineshwar. In Allahabad, I noticed the same things that I saw everywhere and I saw elsewhere. The same ponds, the same grass, the same trees, the same tamarind leaves. But one undoubtedly finds inspiration in a holy place. I accompanied Mathur Babu to Vrindavan. Hriday and the ladies of Mathur's family were in our party. No sooner did I see the Kalyadaman Ghat than a divine emotion surged up within me. I was completely overwhelmed. Hriday used to bathe me there as if I were a small child. In the dusk, I would walk on the bank of the Jamuna when the cattle returned along the sandy banks from their pastures. At the very sight of those cows, the thought of Krishna would flash in my mind. I would run along like a madman, crying, Oh, where is Krishna? Where is my Krishna? I went to Shyamakunda and Radhakunda, there's a footnote, places near Mathura, associated with the episode of Krishna and Radha. I went to Shyamakunda and Radhakunda in a palanquin and got out to visit the holy Mount Govardhan. At the very sight of the mount, I was overpowered with divine emotion and ran to the top. I lost all consciousness of the world around me. The residents of the place helped me to come down. On my way to the sacred pools of Shyamakunda and Radhakunda, when I saw the meadows, the trees, the shrubs, the birds, and the deer, I was overcome with ecstasy. My clothes became wet with tears. I said, O Krishna, everything here is as it was in the olden days. You alone are absent. Seated inside the palanquin, I lost all power of speech. Hriday followed the palanquin. He had warned the bearers to be careful about me. Ganga Mai became very fond of me in Vrindavan. She was an old woman who lived all alone in a hut near the Nidhuvan. Referring to my spiritual condition and ecstasy, she said, He is the very embodiment of Radha. She addressed me as Dulali. When with her, I used to forget my food and drink, my bath, and all thought of going home. On some days, Hriday used to bring food from home and feed me. Ganga Mai also would serve me with food prepared by her own hands. Ganga Mai used to experience trances. At such times, a great crowd would come to see her. Once, in a state of ecstasy, she climbed on Hriday's shoulders. I didn't want to leave her and return to Calcutta. Everything was arranged for me to stay with her. I was to eat double-boiled rice, and we were to have our beds on either side of the cottage. All the arrangements had been made when Hriday said, You have such a weak stomach. Who will look after you? Why, said Ganga Mai, I shall look after him. I shall nurse him. I'll nurse him. As Hriday dragged me by one hand and she by the other, I remembered my mother, who was then living alone here in the Nahabat of the temple garden. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Ganga Mai, No, I must go. I loved the atmosphere of Vrindavan. About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal, the offerings from the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation with the devotees. Every now and then, he uttered the holy word Om or repeated the sacred names of the deities. After sunset, the evening worship was performed in the temples. Since it was the day of Vijaya, the devotees first saluted the Divine Mother and then took the dust of the master's feet. There's a footnote, a form of reverent salutation in which one touches the feet of a superior with one's forehead or with one's hands. And that's the custom, the last day of the Durga Puja, where you bow down and touch the feet of elders, or in our order, the senior monks, and everybody hugs everybody else. This is something not generally done in Indian culture, but there are special days. So that's the day on which everybody is, you're supposed to make up and be friends with everybody in the world. All right. So that was a long portion. Let's go back to the beginning of Sunday, 22nd October, 1882. So notice that Sri Ramakrishna asks M about his how he spent the Durga Puja. And M replies that he went to the Durga Puja organized by Keshav Sen. So now, one thing one must keep in mind is Keshav Sen was the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, which was a reform movement in 19th century Bengal. And many of the young disciples who came to Sri Ramakrishna at that time, they had joined the Brahmo Samaj. And being a reform movement, they had certain rules. For example, you are not supposed to worship images. Only God without form is based on the Upanishads. And so worship of Kali, Durga, it's a no-no. Now, Keshav Sen had become much more moderate, especially under the influence of Sri Ramakrishna. So it's interesting that he performed the Durga Puja in his house with the images and all, but he also gave this interpretation that, yes, it's like a symbol which is outside. And the real thing is to feel the presence of the Divine Mother within. And then the rest of the interpretation. If you feel the living presence of the Divine Mother in your heart, along with that will come knowledge, Saraswati, will come prosperity, well-being, that is Lakshmi, will come courage and Kartika, and success and auspiciousness, which is Ganesha. All of that. Notice Sri Ramakrishna carefully asked all these things with interest, and then is slightly dismissive. Notice that? He says, at last he said to M, don't go here and there. So, which means not that this interpretation is wrong, but it still misses the core of it. That the core idea is God realization, that the Divine Mother is real, and you have to experience the Divine Mother. He will go on and develop the scene. All these interpretations are fine. You know, what Keshav was doing is, look, you Bengalis, traditional Hindus, you have these images and you bring them home and you worship them, and there's so much of rituals and singing and food, and finally it is immersed in the river. All that's fine, but it's very external, that's still crude, that's still gross. More subtle, more refined is this understanding that I'm giving you. You know, Divine Mother symbolizes God, and if you have God in your heart, all the other powers like knowledge and success and all of that will come to you automatically. All very fine, but not so much to Sri Ramakrishna's liking. What was Sri Ramakrishna's approach was, whether you are worshipping through rituals and song in an image, or symbolically, or without any form at all, through devotion, through knowledge, through meditation, through ritual, in whichever way, God must become real. There must be actual spiritual practice. Just the ritualistic worship is not enough. Just giving lectures or fine interpretations like what Keshav was doing is not enough. That's not the point at all. The point is God is real, and one must experience God directly. And you are all of this reform and these quarrels, God with form, God without form. You worship ritualistically in images, or you worship in your heart and feel the presence of God. You meditate in this way, or you meditate in that way. All of these, he notices, they are all powerful, effective ways of enlightenment, but you must take them as ways to enlightenment. And Sri Ramakrishna will develop this theme later on. It's what had happened is what happens with reform movements, that you find people are too ritualistic, too involved in these little image worship and all sorts of little customs. The condition of Hinduism at that time in all over India was a mass of local customs. So what is religion? What is the eternal religion? The little custom that I have in my family, the little image, the little temple I have in my village, and the way it is worshipped there, the name of the god or the goddess there, that is Hinduism for me. Well, it's true, but it's only a tiny aspect of a vast culture and spirituality, stretching all the way back to the beginning of civilization and even before that. So these reform movements came under the impact of the new thought from the West. The British had come to Calcutta. The colonial power was there, English education, Western thought, science. And so the idea, we must have a reformed Hinduism. And then you have these groups like Keshav Saints, Brahma Samaj, and there were other groups also. Brahma Samaj itself was divided into two major groups. But their thrust was, that is wrong, and the refined Hinduism that we are giving you is the right one. Sri Ramakrishna's approach was, no. The right spirituality is whichever path you take. You may be worshipping in a little village temple, but if you shed tears in the name of God and you have the vivid presence of God, doesn't matter. Then you are much more spiritual than the greatest reformer who's giving big lectures in Calcutta. So then he says that, look at the way he emphasizes. Keshav, well-known religious speaker, scholar, social reformer, who was famous because he had traveled to England and apparently met the Queen, which was like the very, very big thing at that time. If you go to England and meet the Queen. So he had done all of that. And yet Sri Ramakrishna, notice how he suddenly says, boys like Narendra, Bhavanath and Rakhal are my intimate disciples. They should not be thought of lightly. M is the schoolmaster, and these boys are school students. So he is telling, is correcting a certain hierarchy in M's mind. Who is great? Keshav is great, and I'm impressed by him. And these boys, well, they're nice, but they're students, and they're my students. So where is Keshav, and where are these boys? Sri Ramakrishna says, no, don't underestimate them. And whose valuation was right? Unfortunately, Keshav was a great man, but unfortunately, hardly anybody remembers him now. But Vivekananda, everybody knows. And Brahmananda. And so these boys whom Sri Ramakrishna mentioned, his valuation was right. They are not to be thought of lightly. And then he focuses attention on Narendra. What do you think of him? And this is M's redeeming quality, that he was readily able to appreciate, to see things through the eyes of Sri Ramakrishna. The way Sri Ramakrishna saw things, M saw it quickly. Instead of unnecessarily arguing and sticking to his own position, he saw it through Sri Ramakrishna's valuation. Sri Ramakrishna valued Narendranath, Vivekananda so highly, and M also says, yes, he is a wonderful boy. And then, having praised Sri Narendranath, this is later Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna asks M, how is your meditation going? And M has to say, not too good, not very well. If you see the subtext underlying this dialogue, it's amazing how M's whole paradigm is being shifted. He is praising Keshav. Then Sri Ramakrishna asks him in detail about what Keshav has said, then puts that, he does not decry what Keshav has done, he does not denigrate it, but he puts it in perspective. And then he says, these boys are even more important than that, these young men, which came out to be true. They became these great spiritual masters later on. And then also further, gently, he points out, your own state is not particularly good. How is your meditation going? And M, of course, is always scrupulously honest. He says, no, not too good. You fix with form or without form. Now, M, being a follower of the Brahmo Samaj, was always, attracted to the Brahmo idea of God without form, and even more the Vedantic idea of formless, transcendent reality. And then M admits it's difficult to even meditate on that. It's difficult to conceive of it, let alone meditate upon it. And then Sri Ramakrishna says, now you see that the mind cannot be fixed all of a sudden on a formless aspect of God. So meditation, it's a slow process. You see, it's sadhana, spiritual practice. How is it different from any other kind of practice, any other kind of activity in the world? One sadhu put it nicely. Sadhana piche hatkar hoti hai in Hindi. The crucial thing about spiritual practice is you have to step back. Everything in this world and the other world, whether secular activity or religious activity, whether you want to earn money or you want to have a relationship, you want to go on a vacation, you want to acquire stuff, everything you have to do something. You have to go out there and do something. Get a job, get married, go get your tickets and go on vacation. You have to do something, go outwards into the world. Even the religious rituals. So somebody wants the traditional idea of I will go to heaven after death. So perform these rituals, which were massive ritualistic affairs. And the goal was that after death, I shall go there. Even that requires going outwards and doing something. But spirituality, whether it is bhakti or yoga or Vedanta, whatever it is stepping back from the world. And in yoga, from the body, you have to quieten and settle down the body. From the senses, you have to shut down the senses. And even the mind. So meditation is quietening and settling the mind down. Vedanta is even more deeper than that. What is meditation, the yogic meditation? It is with the mind. Mind basically has these 5 states. This is basic Yoga Sutras. Mind has these 5 states. One is called mudha, the dull, the gross. Then there is kshipta, the scattered or the a kind of a dream-like. I'll explain each one separately. Kshipta, vikshipta, ekagra, niruddha. These are the 5 states. This is one type of classification of whatever goes on in our minds. And this classification is on the basis of focus, of meditation. It starts with the mudha. The mudha is, you're not thinking anything in particular. It's often the default state, especially when we are tamasic, when we are sleepy, when we're feeling dull. You're not thinking of anything in particular, couch potato. So it is what the mind does at that time is it sort of settles into the body. We're quite aware that I am this thing. Not thinking that. I'm not thinking I am the body. Nobody thinks I am a body. It's just we are so identified. We are sort of mixed up with the body. And no particular thinking is going on. Very, very conscious that I am this person, this being here. So with the body and the senses, the mind is mixed up with that and no particular thinking is going on. Certainly no deliberate attempt to think anything. Mudha. It's a tamasic state. Then a little better than that is this uncontrolled thinking. It is a sort of default state for most people. Even if it's not mudha, mind is going on churning. This, that, and the other thing. Daydreaming, fantasizing, it's like a waking dream kind of thing. The mind floats along here and there. So that is a kshipta state. Then vikshipta is the normal activity of the mind, where you are thinking, but thinking of many things. You're thinking of the job, where did I put my keys, is there gas in the car, what's the traffic like on the road, and did I get my mask? Well, then the boss and the food and the weather, and then what will I do later on, and so on. Planning, thinking about a dozen different things. So this is quite different from the earlier kshipta state. The kshipta state is a kind of uncontrolled floating, dream-like floating. Let's transition between tamas and rajas. Vikshipta state is very much rajasic, scattered, typical our normal state when you're working or doing something. Now, these are the 3 states where most people's minds are. Then an attempt is made to focus. That is called the ekagra. And that attempt, if you're making it for a spiritual purpose, then it is meditation. That and the whole science of meditation is to attain this ekagra state, this focus. have to sit down, you have to cut yourself away from the external world, and then focus on a particular thing and try to hold your mind on that. It could be the breath, it could be a mantra, it could be a form of a deity, whatever it is. And there's a struggle. This is the struggle to attain ekagra, focused, concentrated, one-pointed. Ekagra literally means one-pointed. Then this one alone, from the ekagra state, real meditation is possible. And real meditation is the fifth state, which is niruddha. So there's a whole spectrum from the mudha, dull, gross, body-centered, to the floating, dreamlike kshipta, then to the vikshipta, the usual scattered state which we are mostly in most of the time. Then ekagra, when the focused one, and especially focused for a spiritual purpose. Sometimes you are very focused when you're creative, when you are seriously studying something, that's focused. But focus for a spiritual purpose, ekagra, when you're trying to meditate and mind is becoming focused. And finally, the meditative state, niruddha. But niruddha itself has what? 5 states. So there is savitarkalambana, savichara-alambana, then there is anandalambana, and then there is niralambana. Four states, I think, as far as I remember. All this is in Yoga Sutras. If the focus is on, say, a form or a sound, like a mantra, like we do in meditation, and it's deeply, deeply focused, and the mind is not flickering, that's the first state of the niruddha. Mind is stilled. If it's the support is a form or a sound of a mantra, the form of a deity. If it is even more subtle, the support, it's like, say, something like I do, like a drigdrishya vivek or panchakosha vivek, and I focus inwards, conceptual focus, then that's the savichara. Even deeper is the bliss that flows from being stilled in the Atman, anandalambana. Even that experienced bliss is also shut down, or you step back from it and you're the witness of everything. That is niralambana, without any support. And there again, there are this niralambana, niruddha state. That is the deepest, absolutely unflickering state of the mind. That is samadhi. There are 2 types, the savikalpa and nirvikalpa. And the nirvikalpa also, there are 2 more types. Anyway, so that goes on. All of this is what Sri Ramakrishna is asking M. How is it going? And M says, not too good. And then Sri Ramakrishna is saying that if you want to jump to the state of meditation without a support, nilalambana, you can't do it directly. You need a support first. So somebody asked, does niruddha state be the equivalent of asampragyata samadhi? Yes, but niruddha state is the equivalent of samadhi. And in that, there is sampragyata, asampragyata, both are there. The 4 types of niruddha I talked about, 3 are sampragyata and 1 is asampragyata. But I have to check it up. You have to look at the Yoga Sutras. All these are nicely delineated there. By the way, none of this is actually the core of Advaita Vedanta. Many people think this is the practice of Advaita. What does Advaita say? Your mudha state of the mind, your vikshipta state, the ekagra state, and the meditative niruddha states are all drishya. They're all playing about in the endless radiance which your own nature is, your witness consciousness, the Atman or Chaitanya. You are that. And to you, these states are appearing and disappearing. So Vedanta steps further back. I said to you that spiritual practice is, like that sadhu said, thoda piche hatke hota hai, by stepping back. So when you step back from the world, from the body, from the senses, into the mind itself, and then withdraw the mind into the still state, that is yoga. But you step further back from the mind, from the stilled mind also. You are the witness of that stilled mind. That is Vedanta. But here, Sri Ramakrishna is asking about his meditation. And you cannot go from a support, without a support meditation, to supportless state, niralambana, at a jump. It's too difficult. And Sri Ramakrishna also will mention that you should use a form as a support, he says. So a form, a mantra, and we do that. When we are initiated, we have a deity meditation. So you have a place to meditate. Often it is the heart. Again, this depends upon the instructions given by your guru. Often it is the heart center. Then you'll be asked for visualization. A certain visualization is given to you, like a lotus, and what will be the color and all of that. Then these are all visual activities of the mind. And then the visualization of the form of the deity. Then the mantra given to you by the guru. And then to repeat the mantra and be focused in the form. So where you are going to meditate? Here. When are you going to meditate? From this time to this time. What you are going to meditate on? This form and this mantra. So in time, in space, and in object, desha, kala, vastu, your mind is locked in. In this time, you will not think of anything else. You will not go anywhere else except here. You means the mind. And you will not think about anything except that form and that mantra. So the mind is locked in space here, in time, between this time and this time, and in object, in this particular form and mantra. This is a meditation with support. This is a support for the meditation. Higher than this would be meditation with support. Is a concept, is an understanding. Higher than that is the bliss. Higher than that is no support. And yet all of that is still activity of the mind. And the witness of the mind is what you are. All right. But of course, he's not talking about that here. He's talking about the meditation itself. So which support is necessary? And then from that, you can go on. But M is interested in God without form. So he says, so what is it like to meditate on God without form? And Sri Ramakrishna tells him something, and then he tells him why the problem is, in most cases, who want to jump ahead. I want the most sophisticated kind of meditation. The absolutely still state, niruddha state of the mind, and that too, Swami said, without any support. Okay, I'll go straight there. Don't. You can't. And if you try to go there, what is happening is this. Sri Ramakrishna says, it's like there is this, there is a treasure in the room. Instead of making any effort, I stand outside the door and I say, now I'm opening the door. Now I'm stepping inside. I'm just saying it. Now I'm breaking the lock on the chest. Now I'm taking out the treasures. I'm not doing anything of it. I'm just standing near the door and thinking these things. What does he mean? He means that this is conceptualization. So I've heard all of these things. Oh, I heard there is the niruddha state, and that has these different categories. And now I'm moving from this category to that category to them, the deepest niruddha state without any support. I'm not doing anything. I'm just moving from concept to concept. And the proof of that is, let alone niruddha state, within 10 seconds, the mind will be back thinking about what's for dinner. If that is happening, I'm nowhere near the niruddha state. I'm not even ekagra. And the struggle is going in to make the mind ekagra. Ekagra first, then niruddha. And in niruddha, as deeper and deeper progression, wo piche hatke, stepping back. Okay. You must practice discipline. I'll just make a statement here. I won't go deeply into it. Recently, I read this book. I have always had an interest in Tibetan Buddhism. So a scholar and a practitioner recommended this particular book to me, which is not well known, but it deserves to be. Those who are interested, I can tell you the name of the book. Progressive Stages of Meditation and Emptiness. Progressive Stages of Meditation and Emptiness. It is Sultrim Rinpoche. Short book, not particularly well known, but it's one of the best I've found. I mean, what it did was sort of quite a lot of reading that I've done in the vast literature of Tibetan Buddhism, philosophy of Shunyavada and Vijnanavada. This book sort of put things in perspective. What it does is, in this book, very briefly, and then I'll relate it to what's going on here. What it does is, in Tibetan Buddhism, there are these multiple schools of thought. And one of the central concepts in Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism, is emptiness, shunyata. Now, there are these progressive, deeper and deeper stages of understanding of shunyata, deeper stages of shunyata. So he goes through these 5 stages. And there are these different 5 schools in Buddhism. So one is what is called the Hinayana or the Shravakayana understanding of shunyata. Now, again, this is from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective. I'm sure the Theravada schools will object strenuously to this kind of, showing that they are the lowest or the most outwards. And the teacher says there that these teachings, 5 stages, they are like, suppose someone wants to find a needle on the side of a mountain. And then what you do is, first, needle on the side of a mountain is impossible to find. It's so tiny. But what can be done is, a first set of instructions will tell you, you go up this side of the mountain and go to that part of the mountain. So that's the first instruction. The next instruction will be, when you have reached there, there's such and such tree, go there. Then the next set of instruction will be, come to this particular part of the tree, look at that root near, come and look here. Then you look there, suddenly you will see the needle there. Now you see 3 levels of instructions, or multiple levels of instructions. One is broad, you go like this. Then you have to do that. Next is more focused, you go there. Third one is, look here. Final instruction is, look here, see this. And then after all of that, after that final instruction, you still have to see with your own eyes. That has to come suddenly. That final set of instructions is the final, highest non-dual teaching. Before that, all of these instructions are useful. So it's a very good example, you see. Even from a non-dualistic Advaitic perspective, it's a very good example why all those other instructions are useful. If you just say that at that side of the tree, there is that particular root, near that root, you look carefully on its left side, at the tip, you will find the needle. But if I'm standing at the foot of the mountain, that instruction is useless to me. Where is that tree? And where is that tip of the root? So all the stages are important. Very quickly, what are the stages and what is the meaning? First is the Shravakayana understanding of shunyata, where you examine the body-mind. And I'm giving in terms which we use. I'm not using the Buddhist terms. So yes, Sultrim Gyatso Rinpoche. The book is a treasure. It deserves to be better known. It's I guess it's written in such a simple and unpretentious way, and it hasn't been promoted, so people don't know about it. But one can appreciate it a lot. The more one reads about Tibetan Buddhism, all the commentaries and books, you begin to see how powerful this little book is. It's sort of essence of all that huge amount of literature. Anyway, 5 stages quickly, and then we will move on. The 5 stages, deeper and deeper, from broader, more general instruction to more precise till final instruction. Then I'll relate why I'm telling this. So the first stage is the Shravakayana, where you see shunyata or emptiness. First examine the body and the mind. In the Buddhist terms, the Panchaskandha. And you see that I, the self, the so-called I, the self, is none of these. None of these, I can be none of this. It's impossible. The physical body, the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, even that feeling of awareness which we have all the time, that also, because it comes and goes. So none of them is this self I'm looking at. This is called anatma. And you begin to see that it matches the way the Advaitic idea very well. There's no problem at all. Panchakosha Viveka is actually even more sophisticated version of this one. So the emptiness is that there is no self in the 5, the Panchaskandha, the body-mind. Body-mind, in the body-mind complex, there is no self. Atma is not here. None of them is the Atma, that emptiness. He uses very powerfully the dream example. So the dream example is, when we wake up from a dream, I was in a dream. I did many things. When I wake up from a dream and I think of myself in the dream and I realize, oh, I was not there. That was not myself. So myself was not there in the dream person, step one. Then go deeper. You come to the step called the Vijnanavada, or the mind-only school, or Chitta Matra school, mind-only school. They say that not only is there no self in this body, there is no Atma here, there is no world outside also. Both body and mind are appearing in the mind, in one stream of awareness. Using the dream example, how we can understand? Not only I was not there in the dream person, but all those things which I saw, body, mind, and the objects outside and the people outside in the dream, none of them were actually there. They are all appearances in a stream of dream consciousness. There's a stream of flashes of consciousness. They call it the Kshanika Vijnana, stream of flashes of consciousness in which are arising subject and object. Remember the difference between this one and subjective idealism. Subjective idealism in philosophy says that the mind is imagining the world. Here it's not like that. Here, in a series of flashes of consciousness, both mind and world are appearing. All right. That is called the mind-only school. Then this is the emptiness according to mind-only school. Not only personal emptiness, but the world is also empty. Then third level is called the Madhyamaka school, the Shunyavada school, the school of emptiness itself. This school is divided into two steps. One is called the Swatantrika Madhyamaka, and the other one is called Prasangika Madhyamaka. The Swatantrika Madhyamaka says that actually the mind-only school is not right. It's a very subtle argument. It wants to show that notice that this mind and the object, subject and object, they rise in dependence with each other. There was a great philosopher, Chandrakirti. He says, he gives the example of sheaves of hay which are leaning on each other. So subject and object are leaning on each other. This is a good argument to refine our understanding of Vedanta. Often a mistake in Advaita Vedanta is, I, the subject alone, am real, and the object is appearing in me. But here, the Madhyamaka, the Shunyavadis, Nagarjuna, he says, no, subject and object are appearing together. It's only because you have the experience of something, either in the waking world or in the dream, that you also have a feeling of, I am the experiencer. Here is the experienced object, I am the experiencer. Drashta and Drishya rise together and fall together. That's why in deep sleep, for example, when no Drishya is experienced, it's very difficult to think of yourself that in some sense I exist, because I, the seer, does not exist in that sense. So Drashta and Drishya are rising together and they fall together. Both are empty. If you're saying both are appearances, they arise in a stream of consciousness, no, there is no such stream of consciousness apart from the seer and the seen. The seer and the seen are arising in dependence on each other and they fall together. And there's nothing else. And that is the real nature of things, emptiness, shunyata. Everything is empty, that's all. So that is called Madhyamaka, understanding of Shunyavada, then of Shunya. Then there is another school of this Madhyamaka. This one is called Swatantrika Madhyamaka, which tries to prove that all things are empty. Then there is this final, most sophisticated school, which is called in fact, the dream example will be interesting here. It is not that there is a person and there is an object imagined in the dream, or both are arising in the mind of the dreamer. Actually, in the mind of the dreamer, nothing has arisen. If you went and had a cup of coffee in a restaurant, and then you woke up, will you say that I was there, restaurant was there, and a cup of coffee was there? They all arose together in my dreamer's mind. Did they actually arise? Nothing arose. They were seen in respect to each other. So that is the Swatantrika school of Madhyamaka. Then you go further. And this is the reason why I'm bringing this up. There is the most sophisticated development of Tibetan Buddhism, which is the school of the Dalai Lama. It's called the Gelugpa school. It's called the Prasangika Madhyamaka. They just use logic to cut down everything, anything and everything. They say even the Swatantrika Madhyamaka, these are just concepts. All things are empty. It's a concept. We have analyzed that nothing is arising, there's no stream of consciousness, in that there's nothing is arising, things arise only in dependence on each other, that subject and object are arising in dependence on each other. These are all concepts. Actually, then what is the truth? So no things arise. Is it that things are arising in the mind? The Prasangikas say that no, it's not that things arise in the consciousness. Then nothing arises in consciousness? No, it is not even that. Then things both arise and do not arise? No, not even that. And things neither arise nor do not arise? No, not even that. That is called the Chatushkoti. Whatever concept you can think of. So it is one pure consciousness in which the entire universe is appearing? No. So nothing is there. This is all zero? No. So it is both there and not there? No. Even the idea, see if you have an ultimate reality and an appearance, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, they will say no. These are also concepts. So are you saying there is nothing true at all? No. That's also a concept, that there is nothing is true. That's a nihilistic concept. So this is the state. It's a very delicate thing. And Nagarjuna warns in his Mula Madhyamaka Karika 2000 years ago that be careful at this stage. If you, those who, that he says, misunderstanding of shunyata, emptiness, is like yatha sarpo durgrihita, like catching a snake at the wrong end. You're going to get bitten. What is it like? What is misunderstanding? He says, shunyata, he says, shunyata is the medicine for all the ills of the world. It will cure all suffering of the world by this shunyata. But those who take shunyata to be a reality, for them there is no cure. So shunyata is a medicine which cures everything, but it's all itself also is not real. So shunyata of shunyata, emptiness of emptiness. That's a big topic in Buddhism. Now, at this point, what they are doing is they're clearing away all the concepts. You have the reality, but don't think that it's a reality. Don't think it's unreal also. So there's a huge amount of logic which is deployed here. Most of my studies at Harvard were about this Prasangika Buddhism. That's the school of the Dalai Lama. The school is called the Gelugpa school. They're distinguished by they wear the yellow hats like this. So they're called the yellow hats. All right. Then what is there? The last understanding of Shunyata, that is called the Shentong or Jonang school. In this book, it's called the Shentong school, but this another name is also Jonang school. They're two different schools, but if you read what they're saying, it was banned in Tibet actually. The books were burnt. If you read what they are saying, it's literally exactly the same as Advaita Vedanta. It reads like Upanishads. It says that this entire universe, not that it arises in the mind like a dream, no, it's the display of one consciousness. It is like a magical display of one consciousness. One unlimited consciousness is there. They call it the clear light of the void. Emptiness is pervaded by one clear light. This is basically the way of describing pure consciousness. In that, there's a magical display of this universe, body, mind, everything, every experience, and they have no existence of their own. And this is beyond all conceptualization. And then they have many more concepts to support this, that they're beyond all conceptualization. But anyway, that's the final understanding of emptiness, which is, I mean, if you read it, you just will think that we are studying Ashtavakra. That's the final school. Of course, according to this, we are grateful to this Lama that he has put it in this way. Normally, traditional Tibetan teachers will stop at the Prasangika. According to them, the highest, most sophisticated is the Prasangika Madhyamaka school. That last one is banned. Don't talk about it. That's too much like Hinduism. So now, why did I bring all this up? because of course, main reason is I enjoy it, but there's one relationship here. When Sri Ramakrishna is saying, you're standing outside the door and you're thinking these things. So what is happening is you're not actually tracking it in experience. You're not experiencing it. You're thinking this, I'm opening the door, breaking the lock, taking out the treasure, but you're not doing anything. One must actually follow it in experience. Again, follow it in experience does not mean having amazing new experiences. That is mystical. Here, what is being pointed out already exists, but you must see. It's like going to find that tree and the needle. Now I'm climbing the mountain, it is sitting there. Now I'm coming near the tree. Now I'm being pointed out the needle. Now I'm seeing the needle. No, you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there and thinking all these things. These are concepts. These are concepts are finally destroyed by prasangika madhyamaka, setting the stage for a direct experience of reality, which is already there, rather a recognition of the already available, ever available, direct realization of your infinite nature. Sri Ramakrishna says all of this, he just says, such brooding near the door will not enable you to achieve anything. That is, I think, the whole sum and substance of Prasangika Madhyamaka Buddhism. You must practice discipline. You must, that means actually experience these things. All right, let's leave it here. Let's look at the comments. Now, next we are going to go on God with form, without form, and incarnation. Another huge topic. Let me see now. Look at the comments. Sangeeta says, what, according to you, was the thought behind Thakur stopping Swami Shivananda from the task of undertaking writing, encouraging him to do so? The Thakur felt there would be a non-monastic perspective to get better reach a broader audience. Who knows? But I don't know if he thought in that way, because Sri Ramakrishna's activities were mostly inspired by the Divine Mother. See, if you ask him, he would have probably said, the Divine Mother told me to do that. Kali told me to do that. Would the Niruddha state be the equivalent of Ansampragyata Samadhi? We talked about that, yes. Niruddha has all the states. Siddhartha says, when is the ultimate state? Niralambana, is there any knowledge, as in conscious awareness of facts that make up knowledge? No. Not knowledge as we know. So there's nothing, no, what is already available there is recognized. And that happens, is called, then when that our own nature is recognized, the final result will be what is called Kaivalya. That's also called Kaivalya Samadhi. So Nirbija Asampragyata Samadhi, resulting in Kaivalya or Kaivalya Samadhi, that is the goal. And all of this is not Advaita Vedanta. All of this is Patanjali Yoga. One would need to have the knowledge mentioned in the Yoga Sutras in order to take the steps where one reaches no support and beyond. Correct? Kiran says, meditation on the formless is the same as being a witness to any thoughts without making any sankalpa resolve. Correct? Meditation on the formless, for example, it would be like the 6 types of meditation given in Drigdrishya Viveka, the 15 types of meditation given in at the end of Aparoksha Anubhuti, the multiple Vedantic Nididhyasanas given in Panchadashi, for example. So there are many, many such approaches. Tibetan Buddhists also have many such methods. Abhijit says, is silence part of the teachings and practice in Prasangika Madhyamaka school? Yes, they have both meditation and reasoning. Prasangika Madhyamaka school is heavily reasoning based, but that reasoning is not meant to establish any particular conclusion, that to show that my philosophy is better than yours, I am reaching this correct conclusion. No, all the reasoning will be to destroy any concept that you may have. But for whom is it meant? Already you must have a very clear philosophically trained mind. It's not to like continuously defeat you in debate and puzzle you. It is to set you free from conceptualization and to directly see the truth as it is. So that's one way. And they combine it with a lot of practice of meditation. They practice for long hours. So there is reasoning and meditation. It's very close to Advaita Vedanta. Actually, the next step, which this book mentions, the Jonang school or the Shentong school, which was banned, that is literally the same as Advaita Vedanta. And that helps in giving a proper understanding of Advaita Vedanta. Otherwise, see, there is a distinction between the Shentong school and the earlier mind-only school. Often, the mind-only school, if you read the literature, it sounds a lot like Advaita. But it is still very much limited within mind, concepts, thinking. Sri Ramakrishna says, Sri Ramakrishna practiced all religions to realize that they lead to the same God. But wouldn't that always be the case once he had realized the self? Does that religious path really matter after one has achieved realization? No, it doesn't, but it matters for the rest of us. That's the purpose of an avatar. That demonstration was necessary. Otherwise, what we would think is, look, this person is enlightened. He walked down this path. This path is the correct path. But if the enlightened person shows that, look, I'm walking up the mountain in different paths and reaching this top. Here I am again at the top, and I've seen it with my own experience. Then it validates to me that the claims of all the other paths, of all the other guides, that it's true. I need not walk in myself, but at least his experience shows me the truth of all religions. It's an important thing to see, especially in today's world, when we have so much quarrels between religions, and it all comes down from ancient times. If you see Shankaracharya, if you see all of these ancient philosophers, whether Nagarjuna, Shankaracharya and all, it seems that they're always quarreling with each other. They're always debating and trying to defeat the other. And there's a point to it. It refines the teaching. One teaching must be distinguished from all other teachings to make it a viable path. So it shows that this is exactly the meaning of the teachings in Advaita Vedanta, as distinguished from Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga. It's important to distinguish Advaita from Yoga. In order to understand what Yoga is and understand what is Advaita. Otherwise, it's if you mix it up. So it's important to distinguish, and part of the distinguishing is to criticize the other path. But the beauty of Sri Ramakrishna was that what was already there in the general spirit of Hinduism, that the different paths can lead to the same goal. It is one reality which is being appreciated in different ways. We needed somebody like Sri Ramakrishna in this day and age to reaffirm the truth so strongly, so positively. What he does is basically the spirit of Hinduism, but it's what was implicit, not only in the texts, but in the general culture of Hinduism. That implicit understanding was made very explicit and strong and positively stated by Sri Ramakrishna and, of course, Vivekananda and others. Good. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.